Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So 2 days ago, I gave you my top 10 players that I would want to start a franchise with for the next 10 to 15 years. And most of the players were in their mid-20s. And at the end, I asked you guys if you wanted to see me do a U-23 version of this. And a couple of you guys wanted that. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to be looking at some of the young guys that might not have a ton of NHL experience, but we're going to project for the next 15 years or so, considering these guys are under the age of 23, arguably like 20 years. But without further ado, let's get into it. This is going to be based on how old they are, how good, well, they're all around the same age, how old they are, how good they are. Do they have a contract that already looks fantastic? Most of them are still probably on an ELC. But without further ado, let's get into it. And at first, not a surprise here, he was second on the everyone ahead of a bunch of superstars. It's Conor Bard. It's Conor Bard, no doubt. This year won the Calder Trophy despite only playing like 67 games, was just under point per game. He appears to be the future face of the league, the future either second best player behind Connor McDavid in a couple years or the best player once he really hits his stride between the ages of like 25 to 30. Generational shot, just an overall generational player. Conor Bard, especially in a U-23 list, well deserved at this number one spot. Don't think I have to explain myself too much on that. At second, I'm also going to go with the guy that was on the list yesterday, and that is Tim Stutz, especially considering the fact that he's on that 7-year contract at $8.35 million. Did have a bit of a down year this year, only 71 points in 75 games. The goal scoring fell off a decent amount, but I still think that he's closer to the player that he was the year prior when he had 39 goals and 51 assists for 90 points at 21 or 20 years old. He's still going to be a legit franchise number one center. And when looking at some of the other guys that I have listed, a lot of these guys have not yet proven to be for even first liners, elite first liners. I know that Tim Stutz, as long as he gets his shot back, as long as the Senators have a better season next year, he's going to be a future superstar. I think that he's going to be a top 15 player. Does he ever become a legit top 5 player? I'm not so sure, but the floor is much higher than much higher with a Tim Stutz than some of the other guys that maybe have a little bit of a higher ceiling. I'm going Tim Stutz in the second spot. It starts to get interesting at number third. I think at third, not number third. It starts to get interesting at 3. I think 3 through 7, it's really up in the air, but at third, I'm going to have Macklin Celebrini. I know that might sound crazy considering he hasn't even played a single NHL game, but you look at what he did in the USHL, shattered every single record, shattered Adam Fantilli's records, who we're eventually going to get to. Then in college, also extremely productive, 64 points in 39 games in Boston University. I think this kid has the makings of a future NHL star. The way I described him is maybe he doesn't have any generational traits, any extremely elite traits, but he just does everything at an extremely high level. I think he's going to walk into the NHL and score in the mid-50s on not that good of a Columbus team. And I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be a 90 to 100 point number one center. Again, is he going to be a top 5 player? That's a little bit too high of expectations, but I think eventually he is going to be a superstar, and he's still so young. He just turned 18 a month ago, so I have Celebrini here at the number 3 spot. At number 4, Matvei Michkov, another guy that is yet to play an NHL game, but I think when you look at what this guy has done at the KHL level the last 2 years, historic numbers. This year, 41 points in 47 games at 19 years old. He was just one of the best players in the KHL point blank period. So I think when looking at it at Philly, I don't really love the fact that they don't have a number one center for him to play with, but he's going to be a fantastic future 45 and 45, 50 and 50 kind of guy. Yes, you're not getting a lot defensively from him, but his hockey IQ is off the charts. Back in the 2023 draft, I said he had a higher hockey IQ than a Conor Bard when I was watching him, and seeing him in the KHL take yet another step this year. I fully believe that Matvei Michkov is eventually going to be an NHL superstar, and it could happen as soon as, like, I wouldn't say next year he's going to be a superstar, but I would not be surprised if by the end of 2026, we're talking about this guy as a legit top 50 player in the entire NHL. 5th, going a little bit older, I'm going with Wyatt Johnston here. When looking at him, he maybe doesn't have some of the ceiling of 2 guys that I have immediately after him, but considering the fact that this guy had 32 goals and 33 assists for 65 points at 20 years old this season, and at times was arguably the Dallas Stars' best player throughout the playoffs. He really solidified himself in this year's playoffs as a true star. And again, he was only 20 years old, or maybe I think he turned like 21 during the Western Conference Finals. But this kid is fantastic. What this kid is doing, he didn't even play on the power play this year, the number one power play unit that is, and still went for a near 35 and 35 season at 20 years old. Just such a high IQ, skilled guy, and has a fantastic shot as well. He scored 32 goddamn goals. So in looking at Wyatt Johnston, I think once he continues continues to rise. I think he's eventually going to pass Rupe Hintz as their number one center at this rate and become a true superstar in the NHL. We get to some other 2023 guys at number 6. I'm going with my guy, Leo Carlson. A very, very strong rookie year from him. 19 goals, 17 assists, 29 points in 55 games. You look at his underlying numbers, and they were extremely impressive. He was in the top 20 to 25% in both even strength offense and even strength defense. The Anaheim Ducks just had absolutely nobody finishing, and he needs to work on his finishing as well. But when looking at him, just the ideal 6'3", two-way, smart, eventual first-line center. I think he is the future of the Anaheim Ducks. I think he is going to be their best player, and when it's all said and done, he's going to be a 35-goal, 6,500-point guy. I think that's what he could potentially peak at, while also maybe not being Selke level defensively, but very, very good defensively. I'm obviously very high on Leo Carlson. I have since day one. He is a day one. I got to give him some respect. I got him put him at number 6. At number 7, I have Adam Fantilli. Again, 3 through 7 on this list. It is genuinely a toss-up. I'm not trying to disrespect Carlson or Fantilli. 3 through 7 is very close because Adam Fantilli was a fantastic prospect coming out of Michigan. I think he even had a higher points per game than a Macklin Celebrini, and he did have a very, very good rookie season with 12 goals, 15 assists, and 29 points in 49 games before he got hurt for like the rest of the season. Like with like a month and a half, he got hurt. Similarly to Carlson, got hurt in the middle of the season. But when looking at it, he was really hitting his stride as that future very good two-way first liner in Columbus. I still think that he's going to turn out to be a legit top 30, top 25 player in the NHL. No disrespect at 7th. Again, if you have him at 3rd, I could 1000% hear you out on that. I just have him 7th at personally. And now we move on to number 8. There is a significant drop off at number 8, although I really like this player. I'm going to have Ivan Demidov here. Even though he has not played in the NHL, let alone the KHL, I think when watching this guy this year just tear up the MHL, even though it's not the highest level of competition, when you watch him on film, you realize that this is a special, special talent. I think he has the potential to be a legit 100-point winger for the Montreal Canadiens. If he plays at the KHL next year, I think that he would put up near Matvei Michkov kind of numbers. I could easily see him go for 35, 40 points in like 50 games this season in the KHL. And I think for the Montreal Canadiens, he is the future of the Montreal Canadiens, even though they have a bunch of other good pieces. If their rebuild is going to work, Ivan Demidov is going to have to be that superstar first line winger for the Montreal Canadiens, and I think he's definitely on track to potentially do that. At number 9, I got another Montreal Canadian, and I got Juraj Slavkovsky, 50 points at 19 years old. After a very disappointing first season, he really showed why he's kind of like that Mikko Rantanen type, 6'4", heavy power forward that is also so skilled offensively. You watch the playmaking of this guy this season develop for the Montreal Canadiens. He had a very slow start. But like the back half of the season, I think he had 35 points in his final 40 games. This guy is developing maybe not into a superstar like top 20, top 15 player, but I think when it's all said and done in 5 to 7 years, not Matvei Michkov, what am I saying? Juraj Slavkovsky is going to be a 90-point first-line elite star, maybe not superstar, but star left winger for the Montreal Canadiens. Now at number 10, you could go a bunch of different ways. I'm going to get killed by people. You could go Lucas Raymond. You can go Quinton Byfield. You could go Mason McTavish. I'm trying to think of other guys. There's a bunch of guys. There is a Jake Sanderson, Brock Faber. I ended up going with a different defenseman. I ended up going with Simone Nemitz. When looking at it, he was fantastic for the New Jersey Devils. He was great in his first pro season playing in the AHL, and then he got brought up after the Dougie Hamilton injury, and he really thrived. He played around 20 minutes a night, ended up having 19 points in 60 games. The underlying numbers were very impressive from Simone Nemitz as a 19-year-old. So when looking at him, I think he's going to develop into a future legit star, top 15, number 1 defenseman in the NHL. Yes, it's early. Yes, we don't maybe have as much film as a Raymond that had 73 points last year, a Byfield that's a 6'4" center that had 55 points. But I think Nemitz at 19 years old, what he did this season, again, defensemen usually take longer to develop than forwards. So the fact that he's already an impact, high-level guy and was drafted 2nd overall with the expectation to become a franchise number 1 defenseman, I think he's well on track to doing that. So as a result, I have him here at number 10. But here's the overall top 10. Bedard, Stützle, Celebrini, Michkov, Johnston, Carlson, Fantilli, Demidov, Slavkovsky, and Nemitz. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Again, this is a really hard list to do. 3, I think you got to go Bedard number 1. You got to go Stützle number 2 just because he has the highest floor by a ton and he scored 90 points at 21 years old. 3 through 7, I've said it 9,000 times. It's close. It's razor close. Someone's going to kill me in the comments and be like, yeah, cool. Like, yeah, sure. I maybe agree with you. It's close. And then 8 and 9, I think you got to have those two there. And then 10 is up for debate, up for anybody. There's probably 10 guys you can make an argument for there. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? I'll be seeing you in the next one.